Welcome to the Shootin' Show. Stand by for shots fired.
Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of the Shootin' Show, and welcome to today's program. We're glad to have you. We have a great show for you. We're going to go and visit the Springfield Armory Museum in Springfield, Massachusetts. I think you're really going to find that interesting. And of course, I'm holding a Springfield of another type. This is a Springfield M1A. And friends, this is an endangered species. We've got to get those letters out. We've got to make those phone calls because, for one, I don't want to give these guns up. And I think that a lot of other new shooters and people around the country would really enjoy these semi-automatic rifles if they were available. And right now, we don't know if they're going to be available in the future or not. Friends, we can stop it. We can stop these lunatics in Washington, but we have to do it. We can't sit idly by. So, in fact, today, we're going to have some bows and arrows on the show if we have time, because these people have in mind to take everything away from us that will go bang. So it might not hurt to have a little backup in bows and arrows. Anyway, we're just not going to let it happen, and we are going to stand together. We're going to stand firm. So let's open our program with this Springfield M1A. But you know, you can't always, and yes, I did put it on save, you can't always have this M1A with you. But you can just about always have an American Derringer with you. And you know, friends, this American Derringer with Corbin ammunition becomes, becomes real serious. Friends, we're going to look at a small gun today, small yet powerful. This is the Smith & Wesson 45-16. And this is not the first version. This one is marked -2 because this is the second edition of these guns. It's been out for several years in the first model of the 45-16, but as I understand, some of these guns were not as reliable as Smith & Wesson would have liked. And of course, they're striving for complete 100% reliability, or as reliable as any semi-automatic can be. None of them are 100%. I don't care what anybody says. None of them are 100%. If you have an automatic that has not malfunctioned, that's okay. You just hadn't shot it enough. For that matter, revolvers are not 100% either. But the Smith & Wesson semi-automatics are about as reliable, in our experience, as semi-automatics can be. This is a small gun. In fact, it is almost the same size as our 3913 9mm. Both these guns have roughly 3.5-inch barrels, and the 45 model, the 45-16, is just a little bit wider. The 45-16 is almost completely stainless steel, and for that matter, it has some blue parts there. For all I know, it may be all stainless. I just don't know what the composition of the hammer is. It is colored black, as is the hammer on the 3913. These guns are almost mirror images of each other. The 9mm has an aluminum frame, but with the 45 ACP, and it's probably a good idea because of you're talking about a small gun with the increased recoil of the 45, it's probably a good idea to have it with the stainless steel frame. Probably for durability as much as anything else. Some of the other manufacturers are making aluminum frames for their small 45s, and that's okay if they work, that's fine. But I think Smith & Wesson had in mind this as not only as a backup gun, but a first-line duty gun for police officers or security officers, or maybe a detective who would want a powerful yet small gun that could be easily concealed. These guns are typical of the Smith & Wesson semi-automatics that we've been seeing for some time now. The places are flat where they're supposed to be, they're round where they're supposed to be. They're very nicely finished. And of course, Smith & Wesson has gotten an international metalworking award this past year for their quality of machine work. So these are extremely nice guns. They have the Novak sights. In fact, both of them have the Novak type sights on these guns. And I say both of them, the 3913 9mm and the 45-16 45 ACP. And yes, Smith & Wesson does have a whole lot of product numbers that a lot of us, in fact, I'd just rather look them up in the book. There's too many for me to remember most of the time. You can tell from the full-size Smith & Wesson semi-automatic, from the picture there as well as here in my hands, there's quite a bit of difference. The full-size models have a 5-inch barrel, and the 45-16, again, that 3.5-inch barrel. Now, friends, as far as comparison of ballistics on the .45 ACP cartridge of the short model versus the standard full-size model here, you're looking at roughly 100 to 150 feet per second, in ballistically speaking, there of the speed of the bullet. Well, that's not going to be enough difference probably. These 45s don't depend as much on velocity as, say, the 9mm would. And yes, I'm going to talk about the tremendous Corbine ammunition again. With the Corbine 200 grain jacketed hollow point bullet in this particular gun, it still runs approaching between 950 and 1,000 feet per second, which is pretty hot. And you're definitely going to get the expansion on that large hollow point bullet, even out of this short 45, that you're going to get that expansion that you would desire for this gun for performance. With hardball, it runs in 230 grain full metal jacket ammunition, runs about 820 or so feet per second out of the full-size model, and it'll drop down to about 780 in that neighborhood or 800 in this little gun. So with some ammunition, we don't lose as much velocity as we might think. Well, let's do something here. Let's compare the recoil of the 9mm, which is right here, versus the 45, because a lot of people still like to compare the 9 to the 45. A lot of military buffs out there are still making that comparison with our U.S. military handgun, going from the tried and true and proven 45 ACP to a high capacity 9 that we now have. So let's take a look. And I think it may be a little greater here with this 9mm because of the aluminum frame, but let's just see what it looks like in my hands. To load this gun, remember, pull back on that slide all the way and let it go. And you can apply the safety on these Smith & Wessons, and the hammer will follow the slide down. So you can do that safely. You can load the gun safely with the safety on. You don't have to put it on after the gun is loaded. You can put the safety on and then retract the slide and let it go. So Smith & Wesson really goes to great lengths for people who don't know much about guns. You know, so many people now are buying firearms that are not knowledgeable about how these things work. So the people at Smith & Wesson ought to be commended for their efforts toward safety. Well, let's take a look at our 45 ACP in recoil. And of course, we'll apply our safety and decock it. Well, you know, it went off, but it didn't hurt that much. Let's try the 9, and we're shooting in the 9mm, the tremendous Corbine 115 grain jacketed hollow point bullets. And out of this little gun, they move nearly 1,300 feet per second, so this is a very potent small package. Well, let's take a look at it. And of course, decock it. Both these guns work identically in their mechanism on how they work. Now, friends, I don't know. There's just not a whole heck of a lot of difference. Your recoil sensation or pulse is different due to the heavier bullet, the somewhat slower bullet, I say, than the 9. And of course, your sound and all is a different pitch. But honestly, this is going to be a hard choice. In the small guns like this, I like the 9, but of course the 45 is never a bad choice. And a lot of people would prefer to have that extra bullet weight. They will substitute weight for the higher velocity of the 9. You know, neither caliber is going to make any difference if you can't hit what you're aiming at. So we can't stress that enough here on the program. You've got to go out and learn to shoot whichever gun you have, because only hits count. And especially in today's society, and it's a terrible thing, the actual crime rate has actually gone down a little bit. But what we're having to deal with, and especially women and people that work in some of the urban areas, they're having to deal with someone who may be using some sort of drug, like crack cocaine, something like this. And if someone's going to break in your home now, the possibilities of them being high on PCP or crack cocaine or something like that is somewhat exaggerated from what it would have been several years ago. So friends, what you have to do, if you're going to use one of these guns for home defense or to defend your life, to do that, you've got to become familiar with it. You've got to go out and learn to shoot your firearm, regardless of what it is. And these, of course, any one of these Smith & Wessons would be a good choice if you prefer semi-automatic. Well, Donna, I have to say that you definitely have the looks of that Colt Sporter. How do you like that gun?
I like it. I feel comfortable with it, Johnny. Ladies, I may not look appropriately dressed to use this Colt, but you never know when you may be called upon to protect yourself or your family.
You know, that's an awfully good point. And shooting is not just for men. And as you can tell, we're going to be having more women involved in this program because we've got so many women who watch this show. A lot of women are buying handguns, guns of all types. In fact, guns like this Colt Sporter, which is the semi-automatic version of the AR-15. And you know, friends, the ladies can do it. And no matter, as you can tell, Donna is very much a lady, but I tell you what, she can handle this rifle, and she knows what to do with it. And in today's society, like we're talking about, we don't know what we're going to run up against, so it's a great thing for these women to know how to use firearms. In fact, let's invite them to join our Shootin' Show Gun Club. Ladies, you can join too, absolutely, because what we're doing is so important for our country. It helps keep our show on, and to join our gun club, let's get that up right now. You can call us 1-800-895-7916. We'll accept MasterCard, Visa. You can mail a check in, what you need to do. But the $25 annual membership fee, you do get your Bullet Express discounts, and it does help us. It helps us reach more people. People, in fact, Donna hasn't been shooting that long, but I tell you what, she's coming along extremely well. And one other thing, speaking of women being involved in our program,
ladies, we need to get your Shootin' Show Lady tapes in.
that's true.
We got a great prize package.
That's it really is excellent. It's going to be a great trip to Las Vegas to the Soldier Fortune Convention, and of course our Shootin' Show Lady is presented with a citation by none other than Robert K. Brown, publisher of Soldier Fortune, there at the banquet. It's a big deal. Also, our good friend Rich G. out at Gunsight in beautiful Paulden, Arizona, is going to present our Shootin' Show Lady with a course there at the Gunsight Training Academy, which is the #1 shooting school worldwide. So we really have some tremendous things. And of course, the Shootin' Show Lady is going to be in the booth there at the Soldier Fortune Convention, meeting so many nice people. As we've talked before, it's not at all what the news media would have it made up to be. Some of the nicest people you're ever going to see there at the convention. And yeah, she gets to sign autographs and all those things that go with it that someone will really enjoy. So friends, get those tapes in, ladies. Get those tapes in for the Shootin' Show Lady contest. You can send them to us here at the Shootin' Show, 554 Kings Highway, Shreveport, Louisiana. The zip code is 71104. Because we're going to be using some of these tapes all periodically on different shows, and this is something that's fun. If we need, like we said earlier, we need to get these women involved, huh, Donna?
That's right. Send your tapes in, ladies.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station. Now, friends, we are extremely pleased to be working with one of the finest magazines that you can find in the United States today, and it's called The New American. And the April 4 issue, which you see on your screen, covers issues like Toward a Police State. Using a national epidemic of crime and violence as their justification, media pundits and collectivist politicians are aggressively campaigning to disarm private citizens and strengthen federal law enforcement powers. Yes, friends, this is our type of magazine, mostly because it's true. Now, these people at the New American Magazine are making a special offer available to the Shootin' Show audience for $22 for a 6-month subscription, including the April 4 issue here, which deals with gun control and the things that go on with the politicians in Washington on how they're literally trying to disarm the United States population. Now, trust me on this one. If you're a gun owner, you need to get this issue of the New American. And friends, this magazine comes twice a month. This is really a bargain. They cover all sorts of subjects, such as the Somalian quagmire, as you can see. And how about national service, if you really want the true picture of what this national service is all about? How about the conservative index for the 103rd Congress, subjects like terror in Haiti, the real Aristide? How about Bill Clinton and a question of character, which is most important to most of us, certainly as conservative Americans? And here's a tremendous article on the New World Army. Now, friends, this is one of the finest publications that I think you could find in print anywhere today. It is really a bargain. $22 for 6 months of the New American magazine. And remember, this is 13 issues, including this powerful gun control issue. And friends, I don't think you'll be disappointed. This, in fact, if you want to be informed about what's going on in the United States and all sorts of issues that are so important to every last one of us who are really patriotic citizens, you need to start getting the New American. Now, to get it, you can call them at 1-800-727-TRUE. And those numbers are 8783, 1-800-727-8783, and be sure and tell them that you saw it here on the Shootin' Show. It is such an important publication for our time, friends, and to really be informed, if you want to know the truth about what's going on in this country and around the world, again, you need the New American. 1-800-727-TRUE 8783, the New American.
Friends, you can see how well made this 4516 is, and they did correct some things. That this particular one has a dual recoil spring, and I honestly don't know if the first ones did or not, but this little gun has functioned extremely well for us. You can see the excellent no-back sights here. Now then, when we talk about double action semi-automatic guns, you see here where the trigger is, it's forward like you'd have it on a double action revolver. Well, let's show you something here. Let's show you how these things work and why the double-action semi-automatics require a little more work than some others. We'll push our safety off, put our sights on the steel. Okay, now the gun's cocked. It's ready to fire. Now, after the first shot, do you see here? We're being very careful where we point this muzzle because it's ready to go. See, the trigger is in the rear position. You don't have nearly as much of a weight to pull there, and you have to make that transition. Let's shoot our other target. And let's apply our safety. Finger off the trigger, apply our safety, it will automatically decock itself. Okay, you see what I'm talking about on these double action semi-automatics. You have that transition from this trigger pull to the one back here, and they do require a little more work, but these are excellent guns, again, if you're willing to spend the time to learn to shoot them and maintain them properly. Now, friends, what we're going to do, for out of curiosity's sake, if nothing else, we're going to compare the speed of shooting our 45 ACP 4516 versus almost the same gun in 9mm, and then we'll compare them to our revolver. Let's just see what it does. We have our pro timer on here, and as you know by now, the timer's going to start me, and I will shoot the gun. Let's shoot 5 times, and it'll tell us just exactly, it will stop on the 5th shot. So it will go from the time, including my reaction time, when I hear the buzzer, and it'll stop itself on the last shot. So let's just take a look and compare the 3 of them. This is one of those deals that I honestly don't know how it's going to come out because I hadn't done this before. Let's try it and see. Go ahead and punch our timer, get in position. Okay, 1.14 seconds, and I don't know if you noticed or not, but yes, I decocked that gun as soon as I turned around. Have a pretty good group, got about 1.5 inch group, and realized, yes, we are right on the target. And let me say something now. We're seeing on these small Smith & Wesson guns that the accuracy is just as good as on their larger handguns. We shot this 4516 a little earlier from sandbags, and it would average 5 shots in just a little over 2 inches. In fact, 2 1/8 inches from 25 yards. Well, friends, that is superior performance. And yes, the best group there was turned in with the 200 grain jacketed hollow point carbine ammunition, which we have found the carbine typically to be extremely accurate. So that's what's pretty amazing. Used to be the short guns like this were not as accurate. We found them from a number of different manufacturers, just didn't show up as well out at, say, 20-25 yards. But I don't know what Smith & Wesson is doing, but trust me on this one, their accuracy is excellent. Okay, let's do that same drill, 1.14 seconds. Let's do the same drill with our 9mm. And we're not shooting target ammunition here. We're shooting the full charge carbine. Let's see what it looks like here. Punch the timer, get in position. Well, how about 1.19 seconds? So actually, and of course could have been just me this afternoon, actually the 45 was a little quicker than the lightweight 9. Now that may be where the heavier frame shows up. So I'm a little surprised. That's 5 shots in 1.19 seconds. We were several seconds, 0.05 of a second slower with the 9mm. And just as a control measure, let's try it with our .357 Magnum revolver to give us some idea of just where we are. Same drill. Punch the timer. Okay, 1.26 seconds for 5 shots with the revolver. Now realize that's carbine 125 grain jacketed hollow point ammunition at about 1,500 or so feet per second out of that 6-inch barrel Ruger. But all our groups, the .357 Magnum revolver group was a little bigger here. Not a whole heck of a lot, still pretty good. All three are roughly comparable. So that gives you an idea of comparing the short 45 to the short 9mm. How about to a full-size .357 Magnum? So just to give you an idea of how much time it takes to run these things. And you know, friends, we're not as concerned, one, about the time between shots. What we need to be concerned about is being able to hit our target, because I can't stress that enough. If we don't hit what we're shooting at, none of these guns have enough bullets to spray and pray that one of them hits. That means spray the target and pray that one of them hits. We don't have that luxury. You know, these are not .308 Winchester rifles. You don't have a huge amount of muzzle energy with any of these guns. The 9mm muzzle energy and the 45 are roughly comparable due to the velocity of the 9 versus the velocity of the 45. There's not as much difference on paper as you'd think. You do have more thump with the 45. You certainly have more energy than either one of them with the .357 Magnum, but again, even with the tremendous carbine bullet moving at the velocity it does with a .357, you're not talking about that much muzzle energy, only about 550 or so foot-pounds of energy. So again, it is so important that you be able to hit your target in a vital spot. You can't just hit anything. You know, I heard stories years ago that people came back from, or had been to the military and said, you know, one of these 45s, a man told me one time, said, well, that 45 had so much knockdown that if you hit a man in the toe, it'd knock him down. It's not true. That's absolutely not true. Because for this bullet to knock someone down, remember the law of physics here, one action takes an opposite reaction. Remember that. I can't say it just exactly right this afternoon. We know what we're talking about. Okay, to knock someone down or something down out here, it's also going to have to knock the shooter down. So the secret of a powerful and accurate handgun is in bullet placement. I don't care what type of handgun you're carrying. If you shot somebody in the toe with it, yeah, they fell down, it'd probably be from surprise. And I'm sure it would hurt, yes. But you can't depend on the caliber itself to somehow magically. The magic bullet, no, it's not out there. You can't depend on a particular caliber or load to blow some attacker or an adversary down. You can't do it. If you're a police officer, you should have had classes on this already, on types of bullets, types of ammunition for your gun, but you still cannot negate the absolute necessity of hitting your target in a place that counts. And yes, they are repeating guns. This, in case you do miss, you do have more shots, but still we don't have enough shots in any of them to waste our ammunition. We just don't do it. And you know, regardless of where you had to make a stand of some sort, whether in your home or in fact in maybe in your car or out somewhere on your job, You may not have a second magazine handy for these semi-automatics. They may not be there. You may not have a speed loader handy for one of the revolvers. And even for a gun like this Sigma from Smith & Wesson with a 16-round capacity, hey, it's still a semi-automatic, and there's no guarantee that any of these things are going to work all the way through the magazine. So we just cannot afford to waste shots. Well, friends, our 45-16 definitely passes with flying colors for the machine it is. It is an excellent handgun. It's an excellently made piece of machinery. It is a semi-automatic, a double-action semi-automatic pistol, and as you've heard me say here on the show 100 times before, the double-action semi-automatics do require a little more work because you have to find out how they function, how they work, in order to safely use them. The Smith & Wessons do have a magazine safety. When the magazine's out of the gun, they will not function and fire, at least on this series, on these types of semi-automatics. Remember, on the Sigma series, these guns do not have a magazine safety. That's why we just don't take chances. We always unload them or decock them with the muzzle pointing in a safe direction. You know, friends, now the media is so anxious to use anything that happens, any accident, to try and make guns look bad, to make us as gun owners look bad. So you know what? We need to work as hard as we can, one, to be safe, to be sure that everyone in our family knows the safe rules of gun handling and shooting. Well, friends, we cannot afford any unnecessary mistake or accident. You know, accidents are going to happen, but you know, if this muzzle is pointed in a safe direction, even if you have an accidental discharge, there's not going to be any permanent damage. And that's why it is so important that we always observe safety rules. We never put our finger on that trigger until we're ready to shoot the gun. We simply do not. And when we stop shooting on these double-action semi-automatic handguns, always we apply our safety right then. And remember, even when you're practicing with the gun, if you have the gun completely empty, magazine empty, chamber empty, and you're practicing, maybe you're dry firing with the gun, every time you start back for that holster, hit that safety. No exceptions. And what you have to do is train yourself in the proper way to handle these things. So the 45-16, yeah, it does pass. It's a very nice gun, not inexpensive, very well made. And if you're looking for a small but powerful 45 ACP, 7 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, total of 8, they're very fine guns.
You know, friends, all of us as shooters should be subscribing to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. 3 big issues monthly with literally thousands and thousands of firearms bargains. Shotgun News, Post Office Box 669, Hastings, Nebraska, the zip code 68902, their phone number, area 402-463-4589. For MasterCard or Visa for subscriptions only, call them at 1-800-345-6923. Now, friends, here's your chance to own the Rolls-Royce of ammunition, whether it be for handguns or rifles, even some of the hard-to-find specialty calibers that Corbon is now offering. Corbon is head and shoulders above anything we've ever tried on this program, and you know that I wouldn't say so if that were not true, because we shot Corbon ammunition and recommended it a long time before they ever started advertising with us. For information on Corbon ammunition, call them at Corbon Bullet Company, 1-800-626-7266. And let me repeat that number again, 1-800-626-7266. If you have trouble finding it in your area, of course, Corbon, there's been a run on their ammunition. A lot of people are finding out what terrific cartridges that they make, but I understand they are catching up as rapidly as they can. They're going into more shifts in production because this stuff is that good. In fact, 1-800-626-7266, Corbon Bullet Company. The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station. friends, we hope you're enjoying our program so far today. We have Judge Scott here with us. And, sir, what would you like to mention today to our folks?
Well, Johnny, one thing I'd like to talk about is the fact that congressional and senatorial elections are coming up this fall. The primaries are already in full swing, and I think that we need to do something about letting our viewers know the pro or anti-gun stands that these various candidates make. Because remember that gun ban bill only passed the House by 214 to 216 vote. That means if one man had changed his vote, that it would have been a tie and it would have failed. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to let our people know where the candidates stand. And I've already had letters from 2 of the senatorial candidates, and they want to get my support. Now, they don't know anything about the Shootin' Show Gun Club, or at least they don't know anything about the Shootin' Show either. But they do now, and I've written to them and I've told them to give me a clear, unequivocal statement about where they stand on firearms and gun control. Did they vote to support the Brady bill? Did they vote for the House gun ban provision? Did they vote to support the senatorial filibuster that Senator Dole was mounting? And would they support Senator Dole in a further filibuster if he chooses to do so, as we understand that he might do? And I think we need to talk about that, not so much on facts today, but as we develop them, because I have asked to get the complete list of senatorial candidates from the Republican National Committee, and let's find out where do these people stand, and then let our viewers know where they stand. We want to give equal time now, because if you've got a senator that's against our gun ownership, we need to let our people know that too.
Right.
It's just fair to let them know that.
Sure.
And if they're in favor of gun ownership and are going to vote with us, that's fair. We need to let our people know that, and then our people can make up their minds based on what the facts are.
Oh, that's really true, and that's an excellent idea. We had someone call from up in Ohio recently asking me who she should vote for. I believe she was in Senator Metzenbaum's district. And, of course, he's not going to run. He has someone running, I think his son-in-law is someone, and we assume that he has attitudes and ideas very much like Senator Metzenbaum. And that's really a good idea. So we're going to be doing that. And you know what, friends? We're going to tell you the truth. We're going to show these people for, in fact, just what they are.
Well, if they're on our side, we're going to let
That's
people
right.
know that. And if they're against us, we're going to give them equal time. We're going to let people know they're against us, too.
Darn right. Speaking of that, Judge, you know, I heard today on the news that there's a case of blue flu out in Los Angeles now. And if that's not a reason for us as citizens or civilians owning firearms, I don't know what is. I understand about a tremendous percentage of the police force just didn't show up for work. Now, what are we supposed to do? And friends, when a union gets involved and they have a dispute with the city or whoever is in power, well, that's going to be their deal to settle. But meanwhile, if the police unions do go on strike or have a case of this blue flu, what are we supposed to do?
Well, it's going to be just like it was in Los Angeles riots, and just like it was in a riot we had in Shreveport a number of years ago. People are going to have to take care of their own.
Well, that's right. And friends, you can join the Shootin' Show Gun Club. And incidentally, let me mention, our response from the ladies is real good now, and the tapes that you need to send us for the Shootin' Show Lady Contest, all you have to do is take a video camera, borrow somebody's video camera, whatever. There's 3 things we're asking. Say why you as a lady support our right to keep and bear arms or support the Second Amendment, why you like our program, why you support the Shootin' Show, and 3, why you'd like to be the Shootin' Show lady. And this is going to be great because we're going to get a lot of ladies involved here. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be something that I think will certainly help our programming.
Well, Johnny and I think we need to be fair. We need to tell people that they want to send in a tape and explain all the reasons why they think that people shouldn't have guns. Let them send it in. We'll be glad to have it. I don't think they'll have much chance of winning.
No, good point. No, not on our program. You know, Judge, we're going to get about 10,000 tapes to 1 on why people should rather than why it shouldn't. This is something that's so misrepresented. The actual percentage of people in this country
that want our guns taken away is a very small percentage, folks, but they're in positions of authority. They're in positions of making noise. They have access to the media. I was watching network programming here on one of the 3 major networks over the weekend, and it was ludicrous, some of the ideals. I saw a program produced by some outfit that all of us would be familiar with, and they had guns, machine guns on there in a ludicrous manner. It was outrageous. It made me angry seeing how they use these guns. And this is part of our problem. Television has historically portrayed weapons as being bad or the misuse of weapons. I think it's outrageous. That's one reason for this program, friends. We've got to reach as many people as we can with the shooting show.
Well, Johnny, I thoroughly agree with that, and the anti-gunners are, while they may be in a minority, they're a loud-mouthed bunch.
That's right.
And they're getting a lot more publicity from the media than they ought to get, and we're trying to counter that, and we're going to give the pro-gunners an opportunity to have some favorable media.
That's right. Well, we were recently up at the Springfield Armory in Springfield, Massachusetts, and we're going to show you some of those pictures now.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are in the Springfield Armory building here in Springfield, Massachusetts, with a lovely lady named Joanne Ganji. Did I say that right?
You did.
Well, Joanne, just walking around, this is a place of tremendous historical significance. And plus, right now you have the Royal Armorers exhibit from...
That's right.
Now, where are they?
London.
From London. And we'll be showing some things later on, but how long is that going to be here in the...
We are trying to confirm that right now, but as best we know, it will be here through October.
So several months from when we're doing this, yes.
That's right.
Well, tell me something, Joanne. Tell us what your museum here represents.
Okay, first off, it is a National Historic Site, part of the National Park Service, one of 368 sites across the United States. And as you say, the reason it's put aside is because of its historic significance to the nation, the development of the country. And its primary role, as you can figure out from walking around, was to manufacture military arms, shoulder arms, from 1794 to 1968.
Now, I see some National Match 1911, so
That's right.
also some handguns were built here.
And also to recognize that the Army was involved with the Olympics at the turn of the century. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I really didn't know that. No.
And 1994 is our bicentennial year. And we will be having a bicentennial here on our site that we will have reenactments set up outside. There will not be any firing or shooting, but we will have tent set up, and we will have the periods represented showing the arms that were made here at Springfield Armory and their use through time,
Well,
from the Revolution through the Persian Gulf. Yep.
Well, who set up Springfield Armory? Was there an arms factory here during our own Revolutionary War?
George Washington set up two national federal armories. One was here in Springfield in the north, and then we had one in Harpers Ferry, Virginia, which was destroyed in 1862 by Union troops during the Civil War, thus leaving us as the primary federal armory for the nation. And that happened because during the Revolutionary War, we had been very dependent on France and other countries for our arms. And so in 1793, President Washington made the decision that we should have a way of having our own arms made here in this country to safeguard our own and make sure.
Made here? Now, obviously, you
The very
made guns.
first one was the smoothbore flintlock, based on the Charleville model from France. And then the last being the M14 with the shoulder arms and the M60 machine gun. And there was an awful lot of research and development and other kinds of work going on here.
Was gunpowder made on this site?
No, you're thinking about, I think, before the armory was operating as a national armory, it was a storage facility for several years where we had munitions stored near here in buildings that the government owned. And that was part of the reason they chose Springfield, because they already had an established site through the government.
Right. Of course, in those days, you would not want to put gunpowder around your manufacturing facility because occasionally those magazines of powder did blow up.
That's right, yeah. But our role was the manufacture of the shoulder arms.
From the beginning, do you have a reasonable guesstimate of how many firearms were made here over a cumulative total?
No, but I can give you just one figure in terms of the M1 semi-automatic rifle. Through contracts as well as what was manufactured here, 6.5 million M1s were made. That's just one firearm, so that gives you an idea. During the Civil War, we had about 3,400 people working here. During the Second World War, we had 14,000 people working here. And during the Civil War, they were manufacturing about 1,000 guns a day.
That is fantastic. And of course, during the Civil War period, you didn't have all these modern machines. That was the most, that was handwork, wasn't it?
Right, and now in the building we're in now, remember, is the main arsenal. I don't know if you noticed the dioramas over here, but it shows you the layout. This was a very, very large site. We're only in one building of what was
the original
large complex.
Now, the Springfield Armory closed in 1968. Is that correct?
Right.
All right. Now, friends, trust me on this one. Of course, we have a lot of people who watch our program, a lot of viewers in this area, in Massachusetts, in the Northeast. But if you're making a trip up near here, this is one of those stops that if you're a patriotic American, if you have any interest at all in firearms, this is one to come to.
Yes, and I also want to stress to people, too, that have families or friends who just think they're coming to a gun museum, that this is much more than a gun museum. You're also going to learn about technology. You're going to learn about the role of women. You'll learn about inventions and inventors that transformed industry in this country. We're talking about mass production, interchangeability of parts, Thomas Blanchard's eccentric lathe. Those are the kind of the stories behind what you're looking at in the cases that interest, let's say, other people too who may be with the member of the family who wants to come up and see the firearms.
Oh, I think that from this display, and of course they're always going to have, you're going to have some guest exhibit from some other source. And
in fact, Smith & Wesson will be having an exhibit here later on in our bicentennial year. Our bicentennial goes through October, and in June we'll be setting up the Artistry in Arms exhibit that's been going nationwide.
We've had, those of you who have seen that on this program know what a terrific exhibit it is. And of course, it's going to be here when now?
It'll be coming in June.
Oh, in June. So,
next month.
Oh, look, that's reason enough to come. And of course, when you do come, this has got to be one of the prettiest places in the United States. The entire area here is so pretty. These people are very courteous. They're very nice, and they want you to come and see your heritage.
That's right.
And what days and hours are you open?
Well, actually, beginning on Memorial Day, we'll be open 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Yeah, 10 to 5. There's no admission at this point, just by donation. And as of Labor Day, we will be closed on Mondays. So they have a good long time between now and then. We're open Tuesday through Sunday. So we're always open either 6 or 7 days, 10 to 5.
Well, Joanne, we really appreciate you letting us come in. We're going to take some pictures of several things. Friends, we just don't have enough, we don't have enough time to photograph all the fabulous things here, but we're going to give you some high spots and let you know some of the things here anyway. So just hold on just a minute, and we're going to start walking around the museum.
Well, Johnny, we're here at the Springfield Armory Museum. And here's a demonstration of the national match weapons that they have had something to do with, starting back with the old Krags and getting up to the 03 A1, the very rare 1922 M1 22 caliber rifle, which has always carried a premium. There's the M1 Duran, that George Patton referred to as the finest military weapon that had ever been devised. The M14, which was the last rifle that was in production here, and of course the pistol, the 1911 A1 National Match weapon. That's a very fine pistol and one that has won a lot of awards. It's probably the finest competition pistol that's ever been made. Well, you know, the Harper's Ferry was one of the government arsenals and production facilities. It was the one that John Brown raided and was overcome by forces under the command of Colonel Robert E. Lee. John Brown expected the slaves in the South to rise and support him, and he had control of an armory, and it didn't last very long. He was eventually hung.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
Tom, these guns look great here in the museum, but if we lose our Second Amendment, this is the only place that we'll be able to see these guns. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel the same way you do, and that's exactly what's going to happen if we don't start paying attention, every one of us.
We're here in the Texas Ranger Museum with Tom Burks, and this is some of our earlier Derringers by Henry Derringer, the original Derringers. You can see how much they've evolved to our now American Derringer with all the improvements. By the way, Tom, it wasn't just the men who tamed the Wild Wild West. There was a lot of ladies who were involved with that.
That's right. I don't remember there being any men there, and there haven't been any ladies.
Yes, we have Calamity Janes and Annie Oakley, so the men can't take the whole claim for that. Women had a lot to do with this also, and women today are also having something to do with guns, and we're getting now more focused on the women and guns. Well, Tom, what do you think about our little 45-410 Derringer snake medicine?
By George, it's sure well made. That's one of the stoutest guns I've seen in a long time.
Well, you know, excuse me, Tom, go ahead.
That's the best fitting parts. Not any play in it. Good sound gun.
Yes, I definitely think the snakes would take offensive to it, don't you?
Well, you can sure keep a snake in line with that.
Friends, we've just been listening to Elizabeth Saunders, CEO of American Derringer in Waco, Texas, and she was talking with Tom Burks, the curator of the Texas Ranger Museum, which you've seen featured here on the program earlier. Friends, if you're interested in a small but powerful backup gun, you can't beat an American Derringer product. They have several different styles they offer in over 60 calibers. As you can see here on the screen, we have the 45/410. On your right, the Model 1, and then the double action Derringer, which is available in several calibers. This one's in 38 Special over on your left. Their quality is absolutely superior. They're some of the nicest people, and we really do appreciate them participating with our program. For information on the American Derringer products, call them at 1-800-642-7817, 1-800-642-7817, and please tell them you saw it on the Shootin' Show.
Well, here we have a display of a whole bunch of unissued musket rifles that were, I guess, left over at the end of the war between the states, and they're beautifully done and in perfect condition. I don't know how they've been preserved that well. I don't know how many of them there are in there. They are 3 deep on one side and 2 deep on the other. It looks like there must be several hundred at least. Well, here we have a display of mishaps that have happened with rifles. You notice the one on the top has got an S-curve, a compound S-curve in it. That was a rifle that was being carried by a sentry on a rainy night, and a lightning bolt struck it, and that's what it did to it. Incidentally, it didn't hurt the sentry, strangely enough. Below that, we have some other examples of damage, either from multiple loads in a rifle where it caused the end to explode, or muskrats chewing on rifle stocks, or down here some stocks, some barrels that were actually hit by bullets and pretty much put out of action. Now this is an example of the type of tools that were used in the manufacturing processes here at the Springfield Armory. their principal source of power was water power. And the water-turned wheels or paddles, like the paddles on a steamship, and that in turn turned gears, and the gears in turn worked these belts and powered the machines. And this was all done through water power without any necessity of converting anything to either electricity or steam. Of course, this was before the time of electricity. In front of us, a flintlock volley gun. It has 7 barrels and apparently was all fired at one time. There were 655 of those guns produced, and it was produced for naval service. It was called a deck clearing gun, and I rather imagine it cleared a deck of a warship pretty fast. Now we moved over to the more modern rifles, the M14 test record block. And it is surprising just exactly how much penetration that is. This is a block of seasoned oak, cross grain, and we find penetration, and here's the bullet here. That looks like it's about 27, 28 inches, 27 and a half inches it says, cross grain and seasoned oak. And then down here we have the 03 30-06 rifle. It was used extensively in World War I. Of course, the Craig Jorgensen was too. And there they had a penetration of a little over 27 inches in seasoned oak cross grain.
And here we have the fabulous Garand exhibit there at the museum. And later on in the program, we're going to introduce you to John Garand's son, in fact. This is a fabulous exhibit, a great tribute to a very unusual mind of a great inventor.
Well, here we have a display of plains rifles, as they are called. This group of rifles were confiscated from Indians. Of course, the Indians were quick to realize that rifles were superior to bow and arrows, and they were quick to adopt rifles as soon as they could get their hands on them, either through purchase or trading or by picking them up from battlefields. This is a display that's very interesting because it illustrates the necessity of developing breech loaders, not only for the purpose of increased firepower, but for the danger to the man that was carrying it, because the standard issue weapon in the war between the states was a .58 caliber rifle musket. It was loaded by, not breech loading, what do you call it, Johnny?
A muzzle loader.
Muzzle loader, right, a muzzle loader. I'm not much on muzzle loaders. And at the Battle of Gettysburg, after the battle was over, they picked up 27,574 of these weapons from the battlefield, and some 6,000 were found to be properly loaded. 12,000 had anywhere from 3 to 10 loads in them, and one piece contained as many as 23 loads. That must have just about filled the whole barrel up. Now, the display says that from these figures, it was estimated that a third of the fighting men on each side were carrying non-functioning weapons. It sounds to me more like about 2/3 of the people were carrying non-functioning weapons. That tallies, incidentally, with modern battle statistics, because the number of soldiers that carry weapons in the battle have been variously estimated at rather high percentages who never fire their weapons.
And friends, we're looking here at a handgun exhibit. This is a Liberator pistol. It's in .45 caliber, and it's a little bigger as compared. Here's an experimental Colt, and here's our regular 1911 we're so familiar with. So this gives you an idea of the size of the Liberator. A single shot .45 ACP made of stampings, and our own government made about 1 million of these guns, and they dropped them by air. They gave them to people, literally the insurgents in World War II. And the idea was that the insurgent or the partisans would fight against the Japanese or the Nazi forces, and they would use their one bullet. And I talk about your Barney Fife gun, one bullet, and they would hopefully take some action on a sentry or on an individual trooper and then get his weapon, because they only had one bullet.
It was the only guns having been made, Johnny. It took less time to make it than it did to load it and fire it.
Well, friends, here's another example of some of the final products made at the Springfield Armory here in Massachusetts. And as we said, it was deactivated in 1968. And of course, the commercial name went on to the Springfield Armory firm, which was a private concern, primarily selling Springfield handguns and M1A rifles, which are very similar to the M14. But this is a most impressive array here. You have the Browning 50 caliber machine gun modifications, and finally down the bottom the M60, which has an interesting, colorful history behind it.
We have a group of trench devices here. This was a unique application in World War I of trench warfare, and it was dangerous to stick your head above a trench. You probably got shot. So what they did, they stuck rifles above the trenches, and these rifles had quite a conglomeration of devices, including a periscope, so that you could remain down in the trench and yet fire the rifle at anybody approaching it.
And as we were leaving the museum, we happened to meet Dick Garand, son of the famous John Garand, the inventor of the M1 Garand rifle, of course. And he's talking here with Joanne Ganji. And the people at the museum were so nice. Friends, this is something, Springfield Armory is a national treasure. We've only scratched the surface on the fabulous assortment of things they have on display. We highly recommend that you visit there if you're anywhere nearby, certainly as soon as possible. Well, let's take a moment and let's talk about the Swiss American Trading Company out in Phoenix, Arizona. Friends, this could really mean something to your future. You know, none of us knows what's going to be happening in our society. We're so unstable. There's so many things going on all around the world. And now there's even a movement in the U.S. government to prevent some of the U.S. citizens, which means us as civilians, from owning gold. Well, here is your chance to own gold. You can call the good people at Swiss America. It doesn't matter if you have $50 or $500,000. They're certainly willing to talk to you and talk to you about your future and how you can own gold. Friends, this really could be important. None of us knows what's going to happen, but historically gold has hung in there. It's always been dependable. Swiss America Trading Corporation, 1-800-289, that free package, 289-2646, 1-800-289-2646. It's a free call, a free package, and this could be something that could really help you in the future. So give them a call, friends. Tell them you saw it on the Shootin' Show. And friends, something that is so important, you need to write to your senator, tell them to support the filibuster by Senator Dole, help us stop this anti-gun madness that these knuckleheads are up to. Anyway, you can write your senator, U.S. Capitol, House or Senate, Washington, D.C. For the House, you've got the zip code 20515. For the Senate, the zip code 20510. Friends, we've got to do this today. If you want Capitol information, call them 202-224-3121. It is so important that we do this, friends. One vote could make all the difference, and your letter could be the thing that influences that one vote. We need as much participation on this as we can possibly get. Literally, the future of ourselves, our country, our children is at stake. Well, friends, you know that we hadn't run out of stuff to do. We hadn't run out of stuff to talk about. We've just run out of time. We're going to get our bow and arrow piece on next week's program. I'm sorry we didn't have time to get it on today, but that'll give you another reason to look forward to the show next week. Please, if you talk to any of our sponsors, please tell them that you saw it on the Shootin' Show, because we need all their support we can get. We also need all of your support we can get as our viewing audience. Please join the Shootin' Show Gun Club. We need to get this program in as many households in America as possible, because, friends, we've got a terrific job to do. Until next week, or next time for that matter, we'll see you on the next Shootin' Show.